All right, we are back, DX3 Podcast Radio with Kat and Michelle and a guest. We have Alicia Robertson with us today. I tried to explain on last week's podcast, but Zoom and us, we don't always get along so good.
Yeah.
And things got a little, what happened? Things were kind of like cutting out on me. Zoom didn't want me to keep talking.
Well, probably because I was doing the show from the basement because there's just too much going on in the house with COVID. So today I've told everyone to shut up. I've locked the dog in a cage and now I'm upstairs. So hopefully things will be better this week.
Excellent. So I wanted to tee up because Alicia is doing something that is so cool and very important. And it's life coaching. And it's really delving into a wonderful support system for women. This is for the ladies, but helping women get through divorce and, I don't know, sort of do it with grace. I think that's a word you use a lot, isn't it, Alicia?
It is. And it's funny you say that, Kathy, because as much as it is I serve women specifically, I do think the men benefit from it tenfold.
Sure, of course they do. Of course they
do.
Now, obviously, this is death, divorce, and dating, and you specialize in dealing with helping people through divorce, obviously, which I know a little bit about, unfortunately. Numero deux. And I've known Alicia since you were very...
Then you build the confidence. So you did this one so confidently.
I really did.
You're a pro.
Practice makes perfect, right?
Not like the rest of us suckers. The first timers, like we struggle and we climb. Nah.
You know what, crying.
Yeah.
For years.
It is a different experience for sure for all women out there. There's no question. But certainly when there's kids involved, I can't stress enough how important it is, ladies, gentlemen, to really try and keep it together as best you can. And I certainly think that is so hard, but it's just so important for the kids, because they didn't ask for mommy and daddy to be breaking up. Or whatever dynamic your family is, of course. I'm just speaking from my experience. And I just think that to be given the tools to help you in any way to navigate that with some strength is a positive. And Alicia, I'm curious, to sort of hear your story as far as how you got into this, because clearly you experienced a divorce.
Yes.
And if you didn't, you're really good at this.
Really good at it, right? I've learned all the things. And my divorce was unexpected. It wasn't something that I chose to do. And so I found when I was going into it, I didn't have a lot of information. There was really, even when you went to lawyers, it's not like they give you a little checklist. It's like, do you do this for a living? And can you just tell us what the path is to get through this? You never seem to get that. It's just sort of, bits and bites here and there, and you go and cobble all of this together. So I didn't have that. I felt like I was completely isolated because I couldn't really share my dirty little secret. So myself, I was no different than so many of my clients, where when you have come to publicly say that you are separating and divorced, there has been stuff going on behind the scenes for maybe years, right?
Sure.
So, and that's uncomfortable because we're not going to, air our dirty laundry to the world, like the real tough stuff. So it's a really isolating experience for so long. And then when you sort of come out to the world, then for me, it was all this guilt and shame and judgment. And so it was just layers on layers of just beating myself down and really having no one to turn to understand if I was losing my mind, going through it the right way. Because my reality was and still is, for the most part, is that most of my circle and friends are married. They're all couples.
Yeah.
My friends were lovely. My family was lovely. Nobody surprised me. I'd done all my tough work in terms of vetting, great friendships before I got into this space. Yeah. But it's still, I just felt very alone going through the process. And it's so vulnerable. It's grief, right? It's massive change, emotional change, and it's grieving. So you're thrown into grief and change all at once. And in
Yeah.
my situation, when all this started behind the scenes, my little guy was 6 weeks old. So we
Oh,
were
boy.
living together for a year, working on, can we save it? Can we work on this, or do we, get separated and call it? So we were doing all the things behind the scenes, which again, super common. And even through this pandemic, even more common. How do we live together while separated? And
Right.
is that a thing? And can we do
Yeah.
that? Well, it absolutely is. And it's very common that most of us are living in a home together while there's issues going on in our marriage. So there's a marked difference in what that looks like. And so my little guy was then finally just over a year when we publicly called it. So I was doing all the postpartum and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Right? Like it was such an incredibly challenging time. And I just really, how this all started is I wanted to write a book. And I wanted to write a book that would help women to deal with the personal and the process of divorce. I just didn't think that it had to be this difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is so many layers, right? Of feelings and stuff like that. My first divorce, as people know, if they've listened to the podcast, well, he left when I was pregnant. So, I very much, relate to those feelings, certainly in that situation. And yeah, adding that, the pregnancy and postpartum and everything else is just a whole other issue on top of it. So, good for you to you got to dig deep, it's like you sink or swim, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Sink or swim.
Often it's like you talk about this. I really discovered that there was this narrative around this, shame and guilt piece in terms of society's opinion of divorce, right? In that women are like these scorned women, the victim, the martyr, the jealous drama queen. Like these are, and the guys get their Playboy, what do we call it? Like, I don't know, do-over, midlife crisis. Like they get these sensational, titles and labels. And so all of a sudden I found myself in this victim, martyr, jealous. And because baby was so young, I was easier to stay there because I was like, well, you don't plan to have a baby.
Right.
Marriage is in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
That was
Absolutely.
further compounding. I'm like, did I miss something of epic proportion here?
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
I know. That's the same question.
She's like, yeah.
It wasn't an accident. I mean, so anyway,
Wow.
so it was like this, and I guess that's what life is just like this perfect storm of things that happen. And in the beginning, it was really so easy to stay stuck in those narratives and in that mind space. And that's when I all of a sudden though realized that, and it was actually, I do a lot of the mindfulness and meditating, and I thought, okay, I need to forgive for myself, to let go of, this anger and resentment, because I'm going to get sick over this. And I started to do this forgiveness, which I thought was entirely about my former partner. And it turns out it had nothing to do with him. And I started to really just realize that I myself had lost myself in my marriage, and being a mom and being a caregiver and taking care of parents and taking care of friends and community and so on, that, I had a part to play in this marriage unraveling. And it wasn't about being blindsided or what he did or what he said or him calling it. It was about this opportunity to really understand who I wanted to be and what I wanted to become, because I wasn't sure who I was. In fact, I remember my first conversation with my therapist. She said to me, well, do you know who you are? I said, well, like, what do you mean? She said, well, values. What are your values? I said, no, I don't have those words you speak of.
Right.
And, you know what you want? Well, like, sort of. And do you have the courage to go for it, to get there? No. So I was like 0s to 2s across the board.
Wow.
So that's when all of a sudden I started to go, okay, this is about me. This is about me.
Sure it is. I mean, that is the reality. I mean, we all have a role to play in relationships that falter, for sure. And I think it's super, super common, especially women having children, really getting lost, because you're just focusing on this other little person, and it becomes all about them. And I think a lot of women have lost themselves in the exact same way. But then, to add on top of it, your partner saying, okay, well, I'm out, you take care. You know, I mean, it's really, really tricky. So I think any knowledge and information that you can put out to women, for women, to deal with these things is incredibly important, because it all goes back to, you know, you got to take care of yourself first, right? You know, what do they tell you to do back when we could ride in airplanes? You know, put that air on you first, adults, and then tend to your children. And none of us do
Yeah.
it. None of us do it.
Yeah.
You know, we'll always just
Good
put ourselves to
analogy.
the side. Well, it's true, right? I
It
mean,
is
I
true.
think a lot of people do that. And I think a lot of people, if you're particularly a personality of a nurturer, yeah, I mean, it's really tough
People
to
pleaser,
stop.
recovering codependent. Yes, all the
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It's true.
And
Hey, I go to therapy for completely different reasons, but
yeah,
it's that's one of the things that has been a struggle for me, is because I do everything for everyone else, and then I have
yeah,
zero left for me. I do it in
yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
funny.
it's,
No.
but you know, it's interesting though that we can all talk about it. Oh yeah, I do
Mm-hmm.
that. Oh, I do that. Well, what are we
Mm-hmm.
doing to fix it, right? Because I think that's the most important thing. And I mean, as far as Alicia, you coaching and stuff like that, so what are some of the tools that you're giving women that are maybe doing that to themselves? That
Yes.
are, for sure.
Right? Like, for me, it's like all the things we're talking about. For me, the biggest recipe for success is this awareness, this ownership, and, you know, acceptance, and this growth mindset, right? So for those of us that want to grow and want to learn, this is the how-to and the information matters the most. And so those are the types of women that I work with. A lot of them are type A personalities, wildly capable, confident, resourceful, resilient women, but they've just lost themselves, you know, like we say. And so for me, I find it's both the personal and on the process side of divorce in terms of getting through it. And on the personal side, I really use healing as a strategy to build self-worth and self-esteem. So at the root of it all, I feel like there's a self-worth piece where, you know, am I worthy of being loved, you know, of life coming easy to me, of being financially successful and independent on my own? You know, can I be with myself? And then as you practice and prioritize yourself, that healing breeds that self-confidence, and that confidence is, you know, inspires a more engaged experience with yourself, which I truly believe is what you reflect into the world in this sort of term, law of attraction, right? And some of my classic boundaries in the beginning is I did not associate or have negative conversations with people that couldn't, you know, talk about their positive experiences or things that they had done to come through divorce to improve their situation. So it just, for me, healing, self-confidence, and, you know, elevating your engagement with not just yourself, but the people that you interact with, so that it's, you know, aspirational. Like, I want to be like that person. Oh, that person is great modeling and co-parenting, or, you know what, I want to be with that person. And Kat, that's how you and I have come to know each other, right? I'm friends with your baby sister, and you were like, oh, you know, like, I want to do like her because she has all the things. And so it's that. You did. You just did. You had it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and then from there, it's healthy boundaries, which can be quite buzz. But for people that are people pleasers, caregivers, codependents, those are like new words, new frameworks. So this is where, like, who am I and what do I want? It's, you know, being able to prioritize your top needs and the things that you value, and setting those healthy boundaries around how you're going to achieve that. And then the third piece that I deal with for people is communication. And the communication for me is that you can have all the healthy boundaries you want in the world. You can know exactly who you are and what you want. But if you can't communicate for your needs, then you're not going to be going anywhere, because most of life is leveraging what we want through other people. And that's the beautiful segue into the divorce space, because as you practice these things with your now ex and your kids on a small scale and practice it yourself, now you're going around, you know, legal rooms and mediation with lawyers and accountants and realtors and bankers, and that's even more intense, and it speeds up. And so having these skills going into that space is super important.
Oh, sure it is. What would you say though to someone that's working with you, Alicia, and as hard as they're working on all those factors for themselves, they're still having a really hard time and a combative relationship with their ex. How do you power through that? Because it's all well and good for, her to be moving in this direction, but if your ex is being difficult, not seeing that you're making that effort, how do you manage that?
Yeah. And I get this all the time, and layers of it. Some of my clients are straight up in very abusive situations. Some are the classic narcissist that comes up a lot. And even those, like in my case, I was in a pretty decent scenario through the whole time. But listen, in the beginning, it was tough. We hated each other. We spit knives at each other. Like my journal would still land me in jail if, God forbid, something happened to him. I really got to destroy it. But it's
really
right.
I want to see this.
I know. On next week's DX3 podcast radio,
Publish
we'll be reading
it.
Alicia's
Yeah. We'll just read page for page. But that was my therapist, like, you got to journal. And I, for a year, resisted journaling because I'm like, I don't want to be that angry, filled with that much rage for even more time in my day. But I did, and I did get it out. But the thing is that you can only control yourself. That's the bottom.
That is the bottom line. Everyone has to learn that, right? And that's a big, big lesson.
Hey, you do not want to end up on Murderous Affairs on Netflix.
No, you don't.
Yes, I've watched some episodes.
He is talking. Yeah, and it's dark, right? Like look at the stories that have come out in the news on how vicious a couple can be with breaking up, with the jealousy and with money and everything else.
Yes.
So to try and keep a cool head is so important.
And so many people, and we all do it. And I started with, I tried to do the manipulating through the kids and, and the time with kids, and we all do our thing. And I share this because people see me as a coach and they see me on the other side of this, but I'm going into year 6, right? It wasn't always this. But the thing is that I practiced the things that I'm talking about with every single conversation. It was like, bite your tongue, bite your tongue. You do not have to engage, right? I could only control the things that I could think, that I could perceive, that I could say, that I could act upon. And regardless of any of his choices, good, bad, ugly, or otherwise, it wasn't my circus. Yeah. And sometimes it would have an incredible impact on me and what I was trying to achieve, but it's the long game. It's the long game. And it means that, listen, if you think you compromise in marriage, you compromise in separation and divorce. And that's the other reality of this. Yeah. You really have to know what you want and what your priorities are, because you're not going to get it all, right? You can have anything, but you can't have everything. Yeah. So I found my control through him was being very specific with what I really valued and what I really needed, and letting the rest go.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's big. That's big for sure. Letting the rest go.
Even in parenting, that certainly comes up. And again, it's this notion of, guess what? As much as possible, if we can be aligned on our goals in terms of what we want for our children, we are both going to get there differently. And with that's a huge point of contention for people, right? And that's a forever thing. You have kids forever. And so I even have to learn to let go of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of letting go for sure. It's no different for, Michelle, you losing your husband, it's like you have to let go of what you thought your life was going to be.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's huge.
Completely different. It is.
I mean, I've talked to my therapist about how, I'm sad for the fact that I have not given my children a mom and a dad, that have just been together. Like my parents are still together, over 50 years. Like I'm not giving, my kids are not having that experience, and I feel sad about that.
Well, you can't. Well, and the thing is, sometimes I really got down on myself for like navigating this process, there's my cat, so slowly. I felt like I should be back on my feet sooner than this. Like you see other people, they're, you know, recoupled up, remarried, blended families. They, I'm like, wow, like, and here I am 6 years in, and I'm still, you know, working on my things and doing all the things. And in the beginning, like, I think it was, I sort of, I feel like year one was just this like, well, it was just a write-off. It was just grief. The rest of it a blur. And then year two, you're kind of like forming new things in new ways about your life. And then year three, I felt like you were still doing that, but it was becoming more normal and more routine. And so that's 3 years. But, and all the while in those 3 years, it was very intensive soul searching. And to your point, like I had so many limiting beliefs and fears around my kids being from a broken home. Like I'm the only person in my whole family to have a divorce. My parents are still together. Every aunt and uncle is still together. Like you stay together through thick and thin, no matter what, because that's what matters. And so I had to really dig deep and understand where this modeling and these limiting beliefs came from, and understanding where that fear-based thinking was surrounding those limiting beliefs, when in actual fact, the universal truth has nothing to do with whether mom and dad are still married, right? And this is where I transferred it more to like, what matters is how we co-parent. So the opportunity is that not about what we're losing out on, or, you know, what is, you know, wrong about the situation, but what's the opportunity to make it what it needs to be for us. And so I really started to focus on, you know, honoring the legacy that was, and then understanding we have a new relationship to build, my former partner and I. We are co-parents, right? And in the beginning, that was just friendly. I wouldn't have called him a friend, right? It was just, and it was very clear distinctions of like, okay, who's a healthy male model in my life that I can try to think about when I'm interacting with him? For me, that was my brother. So I really tried to, and I can tell you, and it took, again, it's like, it's practicing it in every single interaction. And every single, and there would be times, even if we had to have conversations, I would be days preparing the dialogue in terms of like keeping it on point. And
girl, you're good.
no, I did. I mean, and that's the communication piece, right? Because again, as a codependent and as a people pleaser, and being in like, this man can trigger me in like a second, where all of a sudden all my hard work could go out the window in a heartbeat. And I'm emotionally charged. So like I had to really come up with strategies, and I talk about this on Unwife with the ladies, is that, you know what, do not interact with anything emotional, right? And take the time to filter it. And my filter is always, you know, do I value this? Am I capable of it? And do I want to? And then come back with a response. And a response that is, you know what, thank you for sharing this information with me. I agree, or I don't agree. No is a full sentence, right? Like these are the things I continue to practice.
She's good, because I'd be like,
I know.
I think that's why God was like, girl, you're just not getting divorced, because I think it'd be real messy.
Well,
you'll be on the Netflix show. That would be.
I'd be on Murderous Affairs for sure. That's why he's like,
That's it. And that's where I was going. I was headed for the Netflix show. So one of two ways.
That's why God made me a widow and not a divorced woman, so that I would not be in jail.
Oh my God.
Somebody ended up dead, one way or another.
I didn't have to do it, but my life.
Oh my God.
I am my mother's daughter, because it happened to her too. It runs in our family.
Oh, it's definitely.
I feel like we have to give the answers and speak to these things and defend ourselves and justify. It's just a classically, I don't know if this is like, you know, gender complicated, but it's classically like a female thing sometimes, where we just have to keep solving everything for everyone. And that's the biggest learning is, you know, where the, you know, in terms of difficult X or working through X relations, it's the building a new relationship and a new foundation of trust. Because men are simple, and they like it simple. They like to know when they get into a conversation, it's not going to be about the confrontation and all the emotions and all the, you know, he said, what happened, you know. No, it's, the conversation is always going to happen this way. I'm always going to deliver what I need and what I want, and we're going to work through it in this way. And it just starts to build the trust back up.
My favorite, because I do have other girlfriends are going through this or have gone through it. And I love it when, I talk to my girlfriends and, an example of there was like an affair, whether it was physical or emotional, and it was on the guy, he did it. And, anytime they want to talk about it or, really get down to the fine details because maybe they want to work or not work out on things, they just don't want to, like, they just totally box, like they just don't, and they want to inflict or like deflect everything onto the woman. That's my favorite.
Right.
That's my favorite.
Well, it's just so uncomfortable, right? I mean, that's
But it's like if you did the deed, like just own up to it and just talk about it and just don't try to like I had a bad breakup when I was younger. I mean, I was really young and I was in a long-term relationship and we were not married, but it was the same thing. I had caught them in something and all of a sudden I was the crazy freak and never even saw or spoke to the person again after that. Like there wasn't even like a conversation breakup. It was just snip. Yeah. I was the toxic one. So it's just,
and I think that's pretty common with infidelity. If they're not willing to talk about it, they just want to shut down from it. I mean,
I don't have a lot of experience with that. That's really the only time in my life that I had somebody exit a relationship. Like I wasn't married, like I said, but yeah, like, so all this, what you guys are talking about, like I've never really experienced that multiple times because I was in long-term relationships and then I just didn't get into anything serious for so long. So
no, and
it's interesting.
It affects, I mean, whether you have kids or not, any kind of breakup is going to be tricky. And, if you can keep a cool head, like I said, that's great. I think when you do have children, my goal is to get along with my exes. That's all I care about. Like someday if my children, have family events, like they, they're going to get married or they have, my grandchildren, I want to be in a place with my exes where, hey, how's it going? Like we're here, we're getting along. There's nothing to fight about. These are two amazing children and let's just be here to support them. Yeah. I think that's the greatest gift you can give your kids is for them to see, that mom and dad figured it out.
No, that's good.
I think to your point too, Michelle, because I have a lot of clients that come through betrayal, right? And some of us are betrayed in a relationship without infidelity, but far along the way because certain agreements were never fulfilled, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Go through infidelity and that's a betrayal and so there's and so I sort of come to, when we are at the point when we've decided to separate and divorce, it matter not anymore. So yes, these things are hurtful and they're things to work through, but truthfully, we have to move forward. Yeah. And even with the betrayal of infidelity, I have a lot of clients who go through that. And I love Esther Perel, where again, this comes down to this root of some of this codependence and that we take it so personally. When infidelity has nothing to do with us, it has everything to do with the person who's made that choice. A dishonorable choice, a hurtful choice, a choice that has negative consequences for sure. But the person on the receiving end, that's the hard part to unpack, is that it's not personal, right? Yeah. That person is on a journey. It was a poor choice and it's hurtful for that. I feel incredibly bad for people, but the opportunity is not making it personal and moving forward.
That is a huge, huge step though, right? It's so hard to not take it personally. Yep. And that's where, certainly through this podcast, Michelle and I have always stood behind counseling. It's just so important. Still seeing men not wanting to, do that and get that support. And I'm sad for them. And I hope that, they can kind of open up to it. But I just think it's so important because not everyone has, that circle of girlfriends or family members that they can confide in. Certainly, Alicia, you're offering something too, where, it's coaching, it's mentoring, it's a lot of things. So you're kind of packaged into a lot, which is wonderful. It's just, it just makes me sad that not enough people that are going through painful situations aren't finding the help,
And now more than ever, information and resources are available to us, right? And I actually,
Yeah.
it's interesting, when I started this, I actually see clients on the full spectrum. And I would say there's about 20% of my clients that are contemplating divorce. So it's interesting, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where it's
Wow.
like, okay, so this is a thing. I think this is where we're going. And how do we do this well?
Wow.
I really feel like some of divorce, for all the things we're just talking about, these betrayals or infidelity, that resentment builds up over time. And then when you finally call it, because it takes so long, it's almost impossible for anyone who's been through divorce. It is almost impossible to call it. Like, it's got to be that bad, for lack of better words. So, you know, but if we could, if it wasn't so shamed and the stigma wasn't there, if it was easier to get divorced, you know, we didn't take it so personally, we could actually have these conversations well in advance and just get ahead of it. And so I just admire the people that I see coming into this space where they really just want to handle the uncoupling in such a positive, thoughtful way. And they're really planned for it and prepared for it. It's still going to be hard. And then they deal with the fact that their grieving process started back when, and they're getting ready for it. And then when they deliver this news to someone, that person's grieving starts then. So there's usually a, you know, a difference in the course, in the grieving process. So
yeah, that's so interesting.
Isn't it?
That's really cool that people actually, you know, think that through. I think that's wonderful. I think you're ahead of the game if you're thinking that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
I'd say.
And being productive about it, instead of going out and having an affair, or instead of just checking out. Honestly, sometimes I feel like my clients that have been through affairs, at least there's this thing that's like, okay, it was the affair, it was a thing. For other people, they deal with very passive aggressive humans that are like just checking out, you know, just
not giving a reason why.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard.
It's really hard.
So you are a life coach. You write a blog. And you've got a lot of different things going on, but you also, because I want to go down the list of what you're doing and where people can reach you, Alicia, but also you are in the process of writing a book right now, or where is that?
So this all started to write a book. So I'm
a
journal.
Right? It's like my journal. Turn into my book.
Journal thing. Just like that.
I got that. So maybe I should share that. I just finished the manuscript for the book finally, which is great. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
The book was really just, I want things to be as accessible as possible for people. Like, when you enter into the divorce world, you're vulnerable and you're at your worst and your lowest right now. And so I wanted people to have something that they could pick up whenever. So I actually, a year ago today, turned the book into a course. So I do a digital course, and it has 7 modules of some of the things that we're talking about. It's sort of, you know, navigating the personal stuff and the process of divorce. And so, and then that has a private Facebook group where there's this beautiful community of women in there who are like-minded, shared experience, where we're celebrating and supporting one another. So that's been super rewarding for me.
Nice.
And I do a live group coaching every week where we get on just like this and have real talk and real conversation and work through exactly the things that we've been talking about. That's been really rewarding. There's just it's so fascinating where life takes you as you start to because I was in business and executive coaching before. And so when I made a decision to go specifically into the divorce side of things, you know, I wasn't sure how it would be received, or if the conversation could be meaningful to other people as much as it was to me. And it has been. And so, and I have a divorce planner that is helping people through the process with a lot of worksheets and resources in order, you know, just getting through these different milestones. And and so it's incredibly exciting. I love working with these women. And I did a 90-day, I was doing 90 days of this coaching because I thought that it would take people 90 days to really get into the material. And so this last time I did 6 weeks, like, women are amazing. Women are magical. Like, it's like, we might be down, but we are rising. And these women are just like, it's incredible. In 6 weeks, see the change that they have experienced.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, people just need that direction, right? Like, just give them the outline to show them the way, and that's all they need, right? So it's really nice that you've sort of devised this whole concept, and clearly it's needed and it's working.
Yeah.
So
And
good for you.
most of them, what they're saying is just what you guys are doing, and so meaningful, the work that you're doing, that they see other people who have been through it. And if you can go through it and you can get to the other side thriving, then there's hope for me too.
Sure.
That's basic as it is.
That's what I think is so interesting to me looking at the world. Everyone thinks that their pain is so, like, they feel so alone.
Right.
When really there's millions of people that are feeling those things and going through those things. And I think it's, if there's one thing, you know, that the world we live in now is as chaotic as it can be, and there are the negatives as far as certain aspects of social media and everything else, being able to communicate your message worldwide in that way now, I think is helping a lot of people, like in so many different ways.
So many ways.
Which I think is a
it's
gift.
Amazing. It's such a gift. And even, you know, on social media, I love to write content and just share of my experience and some of the ways that helped me to get through it. And, you know, and I have women who are saying, you know, this Post-it note is on my mirror this week. And I picked that off of Instagram. Like the fact that can keep somebody going for a day or a week, right? Like, oh, it's so incredible.
Yeah. And it really is, as we've discussed, you really are mourning, you know, you really are going through the stages of grief when this happens, you know. And I don't think enough women and men, for that matter, realize that as well. So I just think the more information you can get and the more open you can be to healing and moving forward, I think, you know, you got to take it wherever you can get it. So
I agree.
Amen.
And I'm like you.
Amen.
Amen. I mean, therapy, I am a believer in therapy and counseling, all of the online resources, self-help books. There's something out there for everyone. What resonates with me may not with you, but there are move forward things we can all find out there right now. And I love that part of it. And I think in terms of social media, and you know, it's no different than you are the company you keep, you know, engaging in resources that are aspirational, that are modeling the things that you want to learn. So like clean up the social media, make it the resources that you want to benefit from, not anything that will strip it away, take it away, judge it, or be toxic. But, you know, find the resources that matter, because they're there.
They are there. They are there. And you have to be open to it for sure. So yeah, no, I mean, I think that's wonderful. And now if anyone wants to reach you, you are online at lemonadelife.ca.
Got it.
And of course it will be tagged up with our broadcast here.
Amazing.
But so you've been working on this book.
Yes.
When is it coming out?
So I'm still debating. I'm working with a publisher right now.
Okay.
And looking at either this year or spring of 2022.
Okay.
It sounds so far away, but there's all these things to do. Who knew?
Right.
You know, that's how you just drop a book. Imagine that. Authors are actually talented, gifted individuals.
It takes time.
Right? They're really good at their craft. So it takes time. So I'm hoping for this year. I think that it'll get out there. And because I'm as much as I'm talking about divorce and all the things, I'm really also ready to talk about life after divorce and get more into that side of the
Awesome.
as well.
Nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Alicia.
Thank you guys.
Wonderful.
I know, it was so fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I just think what you're doing is so wonderful.
Absolutely.
And I'm so happy that we could talk to you and share this with the group that listens to these two crazy chicks. So yeah, we'll send you some peeps. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think they're gonna enjoy it.
I love you guys so much. I love what you're doing, and I just feel so grateful to be here. Honestly, my heart is so full right now. I love you.
Aw.
Thank you,
Likewise.
sweetie. Yeah. We'll have to check in with you again for sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all good. And in the meantime, we'll get together for wine.
Yes, wine is
vino.
Red and white.
Roll out the barrel.
Twist my arm. Twist my arm.
Twist off is how we pick the bottles.
Yeah, exactly.
We can only handle so much.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we are going to wrap things up for this week's DX3 podcast radio. Death, divorce, dating. Today, of course, a lot of talk about divorce and how there really is a new beginning afterwards. So let's just leave it at that. New beginnings. Be positive.
All right. Thanks, guys.
And we'll keep you posted as to who we might be talking to next week.
We'll see.
We'll see. Thanks to Alicia Robertson, and everyone have a great week.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay.